You'd have to be Jewish too, though.
Yeah, I couldn't carry a backpack, a 50-pounder.
Just think about, Caleb was still able to, well, Caleb was pretty tough even when he was 80 years of age. He was a tough guy.
Cool. Arrangement of the tribal camps, Chapter 2. Now, they're set up by tribe for a couple different reasons. One, it's a good way to manage people. You know your neighborhood is, you know, okay, all the, Joseph's two guys, they're over there. His family's over there. So that's, they did that way. It made dividing up the promised land easier. They knew how many people were in each tribe, so they knew how much land to give them, how much space they needed.
That breaks it out just a little farther yet.
Okay,
A
Oh,
little hard to see, but
there's a hole there in the middle.
yeah. See where the tabernacle is in the very middle and the ring around the Levites, and then beyond that, supposed amount of tents running throughout.
so all the tan part,
are tents?
those are all tents?
Wow.
That's tense.
That's, oh, I thought this was mountains. I'm looking going, wow.
The big areas are mountains,
Yeah.
but in between the little tan areas before it
In
gets to
here?
the white.
That's
The tan
mountains,
areas,
they
those are
said.
No, the tan areas, that's where the tents are.
Oh.
Does your program go all through the Bible, different
Must be,
displays? And
Jerry, could you zoom in a little bit?
I don't know if I can zoom in just a little bit.
where was that picture taken from?
Well,
Where did
this
that
is
come
just
Some artist rendition.
an artist
Yeah.
rendition.
Yeah.
See all the tents there now?
Okay,
Oh, the light gray. There we go. Yes, I see.
Oh, down here.
All the wrinkles. It looks like wrinkles.
Right here.
And I got new
Between the
glasses.
mountains.
Yeah, the wrinkles.
Between the mountains.
all the dimples.
like in the
Yeah, okay.
Well, God figured it out. And
It was
people-
very protected.
Well,
And I'm,
either, well, we won't go there.
Okay.
If that's a true location, the other thing that's interesting to see there too is how, with the mountains, how well the tabernacle was protected.
Yeah.
That's what
Having
I,
to come through all of those tribes even to get
Well,
there.
but what I mean is, if you were in a wartime situation, that'd be the worst place to be.
That's what I'm.
at the
Yeah.
bottom, in
At
the
the
center.
Yeah.
Because you've got people above you, it's all over.
I see what you mean.
well, back in that day, they didn't have
It'd be better to be flat.
projectiles like we do today.
Well, they had arrows.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you
How
could
far
be
could
a
the arrow
sitting
go?
duck there.
There, climb the
Go up
mountain.
further.
Going down,
Yeah.
going down a lot better than shooting up.
You're
And I'm
right.
thinking advantageous
I'm
because
thinking
the water
if
comes
they
out
had-
of the mountains,
Age is
so they would
35.
have water.
In our army,
That's what my first thought.
Air
oh, why
Force
do they
is
get water from
39, and Marines are 27, 28.
The,
Coast Guard's 27. I thought it was
A
35
company or a,
I'm looking at
To
that
join.
and thinking the daily,
to fight
The maximum age.
maximum age.
oh, he's going,
I
ooh,
thought it was
sacrifices and
35.
things they had to make.
Oh, yeah.
Look how far some of them had to walk to get there.
Yeah.
They had to walk hours and hours,
Oh,
so they didn't have much
closing
day
in on
left to
that.
do
Yeah.
anything else.
Okay,
Well,
and then
they
I
They
see.
didn't have to do too
the
much.
little
It's
But
not
they
tents are
didn't-
bad.
But they didn't
behind.
have to hunt or fish or.
So those are the
or
Levites at
laundry
the
or
closest,
any of that sort
right?
of stuff we
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
They may have had to cook something once in a while,
Well,
but
God gave them manna and the
They did.
quail.
I don't know if they had, well, they had to cook the quail, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
but I'm not, the manna, they just ate like it was.
Right.
So the ones closest right there in that horseshoe is the Levites?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So, and people didn't have last names, so their tribe was their name, their last name.
You're Aaron's son, tribe of
Yeah.
whatever.
It made it easier to keep detailed genealogies because you just had to walk
Aaronson.
around your section of the
Yeah,
camp.
there you go.
And it made travel more efficient because as they move out in camp order. And let's see, then, can't remember where I read that, how it's had them go out, but God tells them how they're gonna leave the camp even.
Yes.
So in chapter.
Well, yeah, Judah's group will go out first. And,
How often would they
What
move?
chapter is that, Jerry?
Did it say-
I know I saw
I
it.
wrote that.
it's around verse 34. Marching order.
Got marching
Ah,
orders.
that's it, that's perfect, thank you. So, as Gary said in verse 34, it says, "So the Israelites did everything the Lord commanded Moses. That is the way they encamped under their standard," the little flags Gary gave us, "and that is the way they set out, each of them with their clan and family."
So trumpets or horns or things were blown when it was time to,
When it was time to go. In chapter 3, we get to the Levites. This is the account of the family of Aaron and Moses at the time the Lord spoke to Moses at Mount Sinai. So, in verse 4, we get a recap of the two sons that died. Because he names the two sons, Abihu and Eleazar, Eleazar and Ithamar. Those are the two priests, because Nadab and Abihu, however, died before the Lord when they made an offering with unauthorized fire before him in the desert of Sinai. In Leviticus chapter 10, verses 1 through 2, we hear that the two guys, Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, took their censers, put fire in them, and added incense, and they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, contrary to his command. So fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. And remember, that happened immediately after their 7-day ordination period. So they had all that practice, 7 days of practice, and they still got it wrong. And they think that maybe, perhaps they were drunk. And that's why, shortly thereafter, God tells Moses they can't drink.
that'd be pretty important to be mentioned again.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So God, again, when he's talking about the Levites, he wants to make sure that they know that they're holy and they have to be careful in what they do. Verse 9, give the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They are the Israelites who are to be given wholly to him. And a lot of manuscripts where it says him, it actually says to me. So this would read, give the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They are the Israelites who are to be given wholly to me. So God's saying right there, these are my people. Appoint Aaron and his sons to serve as priests. Anyone else who approaches the sanctuary is to be put to death.
It's with no trial, no nothing. The Levites had to be good fighters even though they weren't counted.
And I think I found, well, we'll get there. In one of my footnotes, God picked the Levites because those are the only ones who stood alongside Moses when the golden calf incident happened.
And they went out and killed their brethren.
They killed whoever was offending God.
I'll be
So
darned.
that's when God picked the Levites. Because before that time, I think I have it referenced here. Let's see here. Yeah, in Exodus chapter 32, verses 26 and 29, the Levites came alongside Moses to defend God, and that's when God set them up as to be priests. Because here's what Moses said. So he stood at the entrance of the camp and said, "Whoever is for the Lord, come to me." And all the Levites rallied to him. Then Moses said, "You have been set apart to the Lord today, for you were against your own sons and brothers, and he has blessed you this day." Because before that, God told the Israelites, "You are to be my priestly nation." And all of them were supposed to be priests. But then they worshiped the golden calf, and that's when God selected the Levites, because that was the only family that came alongside Moses. The Lord also said to Moses in verse 11 and 12, "I have taken the Levites from among the Israelites in place of the first male offspring of every Israelite woman. The Levites are mine." Because remember, God asked for the first fruits. So instead of taking one from each family, he says, "I'm going to take the Levites instead." So those are his firstborn. And
Kind of goes back to Egypt, the firstborn were killed.
exactly, and that's what God says in verse 13. When I struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, I set apart for myself every firstborn in Israel. whether human or animal. They are to be mine, and I am the Lord. So great timing, Gary. Count the Levites by their families and clans. Count every male a month old or more. Now, every priest had to be a Levite, but not every Levite became a priest. So this is just a pool that God had to choose from. Now let's see. So every male a month old or more. So I guess they figured if they made it a month, they're going to survive. And Levites had to be 25 years old before they entered the priesthood, not 20 like I said before. Then they got their 5 years of training before they entered into full priesthood at age 30, and then they served till age 50. So they had an early retirement. Numbers chapter 4 tells us, count all the men from 30 to 50 years of age who come to serve in the work of the tent of the meeting. So they had 20 years of service. And that could be because of all the heavy lifting they had to do. They were responsible for taking down the tabernacle, moving it out, and marching with it when it came time to move.
We never knew how many times they actually moved, though. They
I
hinted
think-
several.
Yeah. We'll find out. I'm sure we can find a handy map that will show us all their travels. Let's see here. In verse 28, the number of all males a month old or more was 8,600. And then it breaks out who was in charge of the Kohathites, who were responsible for the care of the sanctuary. And they were to camp on the south end of the tabernacle.
Where'd the name Kohathites come from? It does, because they
Just
don't,
one of the clans.
okay, because there's no children with that name, right?
No, they were part of the Levites. So that was probably one of the clans in the tribe.
Gotcha.
Verse 31, that group would be in charge of the ark. And way back with David.
Kohath would have been one of Aaron's sons.
Oh, okay.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. He was on the, he would have been on the north side.
They were responsible for the care of the ark, the table, the lampstand, the altars, the articles of the sanctuary used in ministering, the curtain, and everything related to their use.
So they're in charge of it, but not moving it. Is where I was going with
Okay.
David. When they were moving it, they touched him, and he died instantly.
Oh. Huh.
Let's see here. Okay. And then when we get to verse 44 through, I think the end of the chapter. So God took the Levites in place of the firstborn from every clan. So there was an excess of firstborn in the other clans versus the Levites. There were 273 more firstborn Israelites than could be covered by the Levites. And that's where they had to pay a redemption price. So instead of giving their children up, giving up their firstborn to God, they paid 5 shekels in verse 47.
Kind of like they do in China today.
That's,
Kind of like they do in China today.
I don't know.
If they have more children than what there's allowed
Oh.
there, they've had to pay.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
that's kind of interesting, because chapter 1, they talk on the census, they didn't mention anything about the firstborn, counting firstborn, just males. And now here it comes up, firstborns were counted.
So, I'll have to look into that a little bit closer to see if it was firstborn sons or firstborn when we get to this section. Okay. And that's it for the first 3 chapters. So we're going to start seeing some pretty interesting stuff in the next couple chapters. We're going to run into first couple sins. And I think it's chapter 5 where we get interesting. Yeah. So read closely. There's gonna be a lot of stuff in here that I wanna pay attention to.
So
And
numbers,
Backtrack in 41,
Uh-huh.
43.
4, 5, and 6.
The cattle of the Levites, firstborn.
What a
Take the
lineage.
Levites from me in place of all the firstborn of the Israelites, and livestock of the Levites in place of the firstborn of livestock. Yeah.
So they got, not only some money, but some cattle.
Because they had no time to do anything else.
One of my
I said I
questions,
just hate hearing how cool it is.
Nadab and Abihu, did they go to heaven?
Oh, we don't know.
That's
They
a
were
good
destroyed.
question. That was a good question.
Just because they disobeyed, did they?
But they had faith.
They
had
did,
faith.
they did.
And
They
then the
just,
final thing, I don't know, I would like to think they did.
My best guess would be yes.
Yeah, that's what I would